Hello, everyone out there in radio land. It is once again that time of the week where we come onto your radio dial and we tell y'all what is really going on here in Kalamazoo, the state of Michigan, the so-called United States, and the rest of the world from a working class perspective. That's right, y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. Well, it's our last episode properly of the summer. You know, this is, I don't have anything really specific towards that. Just top 10 swimsuits for late stage capitalism. No, but I know students are going to be back next week, and we'll be doing some kind of special beginning of year stuff. Kind of. Again, if you're an old head and you've been listening to this show for a long time, please be patient with us next week. I do. I always usually spend our. I guess we'll call it our Bronco Bash episode, kind of going over the ABCs of media ciphers. Um, but yeah, that's next week. Today, we've got a lot to talk about on the program. Not again, not quite as active or intense as last week. We had that big city commission meeting where people were talking about data centers and flock cameras and the eviction of the houseless folks over on the Edwards Street. If you missed that episode, again, we keep all of our episodes online on the internet, at least for now, until the federal government pressures those platforms to keep it kick us off. My get that won't happen for a very long time. We're a fairly small tadpole in a very large lake, as far as the media ecosystem goes. But anyway, I digress. We're going to be jumping in, talking a little bit. There's this article I found from MLive that speaks to, again, one of the big things that we talk about, especially this being we broadcast out of a college radio station, is education and the way that federal government, not just now under Trump, but really for the last 40 years has been disinvesting from public education. We're going to be talking about that. Um, and depending on time, we did a really good episode about student debt, teaching about student debt. It's a little dated now. We put it out during the Biden administration, but it speaks to some of those things as well. Might go ahead and link to that in the show notes. But as we talked about, the education system and something that I thought was kind of some prominent, ever since Reagan has really been getting defunded, strip mined, privatized. And a lot of that also has to do with, the lack of geopolitical competition. It's very interesting to see how different generations of American capitalists approach this problem. Because during the Cold War, there was this big um, there was this idea that making sure that we had a sufficiently educated population in America to, compete with the Soviets. Nowadays, there is a thirst to compete with our geopolitical competitors, be it, China, Iran, Russia, but um, apparently not with they want to allocate all of the brain power, I guess, to emergent AI systems instead of people, because as far as the disinvestment in our education, that is full steam ahead. This article from MLive, I think, does a really good job explaining the ramifications of that in Michigan and how Michigan is actually, a lot of people would not know this, has actually been hit the hardest by a lot of this austerity. And again, talking about last 30, 40 years. This is an article that was written by Jackie Smith um, of MLive. Michigan teacher pay down 29% since 1995, creating uphill battle for schools, study says. Michigan teachers have experienced a steeper decline in average salaries over the last 30 years than in any other state. And according to one Michigan State University study, that's despite nearly three-quarters of Michiganders supporting paying teachers more. MSU's Education Policy Innovation Collaborative released a report on the issue last week, and it cites a 29% decline in average salaries since 1995. When adjusted for inflation, that's the equivalent of a drop from $100,064 to $71,023 in 2025. And I look again. I know I adjusted in for inflation, but I can't. I have a lot of friends who are teachers. I don't think any of them could imagine making six figures, which is sad. I mean, that's a sad thing, but going on. Overall, the decline exceeds Indiana's drop of 20.7%, the next steepest in the nation, as well as a 4.2 national average decrease in that same period. You know what that means, Michiganders? That means Ohio is doing better than us on this issue, and if for no other reason, that should that should make you want to get some progressive education reform. Anyway, Michigan schools are trying to recruit and retain teachers at a time of persistent shortages and historically high rates of teachers leaving the profession, said Jason Burns, EPIC research specialist. They're doing it with salaries that buy almost 30% less than they did in 1995, and with a pay gap against other college educated workers that has been widening in recent years. That is an uphill battle. Other data similarly supports education advocates' concerns about the long term challenge facing schools struggling to find and keep teachers. An MLive media survey of salary data this summer showed Michigan's most well paid educators have continued to be the state's most populous districts, while educators in more rural or isolated areas are paid far less despite similar student to teacher ratios. Outside of inflation, state and national agencies tracking pay show a general rise in pay over the last few years. By 2025, the average salary among 59,377 Michigan teachers was $71,023, a 2.8% increase from 69,068 among close to 60,000 educators the year prior, and 14.6% higher than the roughly $62,000 average among 59 plus thousand teachers in 2015. According to the National Education Association, Michigan's latest average salary ranks number 22 in the United States. Before I go on, and again, there's a lot of important information in this article. One thing I do want to kind of highlight or comment on is, this is not by accident. Disinvestment from public education has been, sadly, especially since Clinton years, a bipartisan project. I think there has been at least a little bit of a turn, at least a little bit more criticism or pressure on Democrats who are still pushing for things like vouchers and charter schools. But by and large, this is not something that, I haven't really seen a big national movement rise up against. And again, this is by design. You know, the Trump administration and even again a lot of Democrats would rather have you send your students to a private school, where again you can control their own pay, whether it's overpaying ideologically consistent teachers, again teachers who are ideologically consistent with the fascist government, or basically trying to abolish public education altogether, making private education the only game in town, and more or less offering teachers much less than they're actually worth. Or as we've seen in states like Florida, just accepting whoever without the proper qualifications. And it goes, I think we need to kind of scope out a little bit more broadly. Think too about how the direction that geopolitics is going in. This is something that's been on my mind. I just picked up that new book, The Nerd Reich, and that's something we talk about on the show. Is especially a lot the Silicon Valley billionaires are getting very ahead of themselves. basically trying to turn the world into a big cyberpunk dystopia. Not even a cool one without all the with all the neon and stuff. Just it's all the downsides of a cyberpunk dystopia without any of the cool aesthetics, and that just I ain't with that at all. Um, but you have people like can't remember if it was Sam Altman or Peter Thiel. I will check. Talked about treating knowledge like a utility, like something that you would have to pay for. No, no, that was Sam Altman who said that. And if you really parse that out, that means like that the people currently running the United States in a large section of the world don't really believe in the idea of public education and look at the transfers of knowledge as just another avenue of seeking profit. And again, this is the reason public education was created in the first place. Was again, it was a kind of rebellion from below, demanding that working people have access to basic education, and the state relented. But what these tech oligarchs are trying to do is really like take us back into time, and they're trying to close off the internet. They're hoarding all the books. I know this sounds weird and conspiratorial, but this is like reality. And they would much rather have knowledge education being something they can gatekeep behind a paywall. And it's not all profit seeking, but also because a lot of these tech oligarchs have very pseudo eugenicist views on human society, and they genuinely think only the quote unquote smartest people should rise to the top, which often tends to be people like them who are wealthy and already have access to education, and as many of you know, are not themselves often the brightest bulbs in the shed. Elon Musk. So all of that being said, this it's an important. I'm going to keep reading from the article here, but there's something bigger, something but bigger at the society level going on that is causing these issues to accelerate or kind of reaching their apotheosis, which is this 40 years of austerity um, is a good jumping off point for some of these tech oligarchs to just do away with the public social safety net altogether. We obviously can't let them, and part of that starts here at home by making sure our Michigan teachers make a better salary. I'm going to keep reading on now. Researchers with AIPAC say Michigan was previously one of the country's highest paying states for several decades, ranking often in the top 10 from 1970 through 2007. Similar struggles have been tracked with salaries for teachers just starting out. Michigan ranked 31 nationally with starting pay in 2017 before falling to 45 in 2025. That means there is only that means 44 yeah, 44 states are doing better than us on teacher salaries. That is not pure Michigan. That's some pure BS is what that is. The NEA released its latest study of teacher salary benchmarks in April this year with more school districts than ever, or roughly 91% of those surveyed nationwide, heeding calls for minimum starting salaries of at least $40,000 for new teachers. The national average starting salary reportedly increased by 3.4% between 2024 and 2025, equating to a real growth rate of less than 1% when accounting for inflation. So, a few more nights out getting Taco Bell, which is also much more expensive these days. Nothing really or particularly significant. Michigan's average starting salary was 43,000, which was up from 41.5 thousand in 2024. Other staffing data, such as teachers' age, experience, and longevity, may also help explain how average pay for all educators varies around the state. According to AIPAC, Michigan teachers also trail other college-educated workers in the state. In 2024, teachers earned 28.8% less than other professionals with similar education and experience, the 12th largest wage gap in the country. Nearly 72% of Michigan residents said starting teacher salaries should increase, according to a survey of 1,000 adults conducted through MSU's State of the State survey. Just 25.2% said salaries should remain the same, and 3% said they should decrease. Residents put the ideal starting salary at $55,000, nearly $12,000 above the current average. Michiganders have been consistent about wanting higher teacher pay, and they are most emphatic about raises for new teachers. That matters because compensation is one of the levers research identifies for attracting and retaining an effective teacher workforce. Which that is a really wordy way to say that you're not going to attract many teachers if you pay them crappy wages. But yeah. Anyway, we'll go ahead. We will link to that in the show notes. Really important article. Again, at MLive, Michigan teacher pay down 29% since 1995, creating uphill battle for schools, study says. That was written by Jackie Smith. Keep your dial locked. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Our next story, this is right here in Kalamazoo. And this is from a friend of the show, Aya Miller. They are reporting on behalf of the Kalamazoo Gazette, and this is so talking about the commissioner's reaction to a ballot proposal that is going to be on in November from Community Action Michigan. And it is essentially to create a healthcare action committee and action plan. And what's interesting about this is there's pushback from the commission, and this is both from some of the more conservative members of the commission, as well as kind of the more progressive wing. So there's again this um, you call it bipartisan agreement. I mean, they're technically everybody on a board right now is Democrat, but different flavors. You know, but yeah, when I think it's interesting that again you have David Anderson who kind of represents this old guard, very like billionaire adjacent um, uh, person in local city government. Drew Duncan was seen as kind of the progressive insurgent in the last election. They're currently the vice mayor, which I guess that goes to say something about the popularity of those types of progressive politics these days. But yeah, you find them both kind of having the same line of disagreement or suspicion about a particular proposal, and it's worth looking into. Okay, what are these concerns and what's it all about? Um, I will say this is also breaking. This is also breaking news today. So I don't really have something prepared ahead of time, but I do have a few thoughts, even just like reading this article in the last a few minutes here. But there's one specific point I definitely want to get to, but let's go ahead get into this article, and I will kind of talk about it more as we go along. So, Kalamazoo residents will vote on whether to create actually, I'll read the headline first, of course. I am 100% opposed. Kalamazoo leaders skeptical of cryptic proposal on November 3rd ballot. Kalamazoo, and this was published today by Aya Miller. Saying that again. Kalamazoo residents will vote on whether to create a healthcare action committee and action plan on Tuesday, November 3rd. But city commissioners have concerns over what the committee will do and who's behind the request. Multiple city commissioners raised concerns about the lack of communication from Community Action Michigan, the nonprofit behind the initiative, at the August 10th City Commission meeting. City leaders say they know little about the group behind it, question its goals, and worry voters are being asked to amend the city charter without fully understanding the consequences. When MLive / Kalamazoo Gazette attempted to contact Community Action Michigan, a reporter was directed to two different communications agencies that spoke on behalf of the nonprofit, plus an organizer with the Michigan Democratic Party. If passed, the initiative would add a section to the Kalamazoo City Charter to establish the committee. The city may have to pay for staffing and any data collection efforts for the committee, taking funding away from other areas, said Mayor David Anderson. The city also doesn't have the expertise to address what the petition proposes, Anderson said. I am 100% opposed to this, Anderson said. If it passes, we're stuck with this for the rest of our lives. City commissioners unanimously approved the ballot language on August 10th, but not because they support it. We don't really have a choice in this, said Commissioner Chris Pradell. The Michigan Home Rule City Act requires any petition that receives enough ballot signatures be added to the ballot, Anderson said. The petition received close to 5,700 signatures, according to city documents, crossing the threshold of 10% of registered voters. The goal of the committee is to address what we can at the local level and act collaboratively to demand solutions that can bring down healthcare costs, said Barbara Hammond, board president of Community Action Michigan via communications agency. The committee would also make recommendations to address high healthcare costs and inaccessibility, according to meeting documents. The committee would have 7 members, according to the City Commission. Committee members should have a broad array of backgrounds, such as healthcare workers, uninsured or underinsured community members, public health officials or professionals, patient advocates, and organized labor, the ballot language says. The action plan would be presented to the City Commission every even-numbered year and would contain an analysis of local residents' experiences with healthcare affordability, access, and insurance. The plan would also analyze how local, state, and federal policies affect those experiences. When asked what Kalamazoo has capacity to do to address healthcare costs, Ryan Cohn with Sachs Media said the city buys healthcare coverage for city employees, runs emergency response, making zoning and permitting decisions that affect access to clinics and pharmacies, and can help residents sign up for coverage they qualify for. Anderson said the city buys healthcare coverage for their employees, but it doesn't have expertise or authority to take action against the healthcare market in other ways. The Community Action Michigan website does not list any individuals representing the organization. The organization is also pursuing ballot initiatives in Portage, Battle Creek, Benton Harbor, Lansing, and East Lansing. The Portage City Council added the proposal to their November ballot earlier this month. Community Action Michigan reps did not reach out beforehand, said Mary Beth Block, Portage Public Information Officer. The organization was registered as both a nonprofit and a state political action committee in late April. The only publicly identified member of the organization is Hammond, a retired nurse and trustee of Kalamazoo County's Texas Charter Township, according to Bridge, Michigan. There's a political slant to some of the messaging from Community Action Michigan that includes language targeting Republican U.S. Rep. Bill Huizenga, who represents Southwest Michigan in Congress and is up for re-election in November. Cohen cited Huizenga as a reason why community members struggle with healthcare costs. Community Action Michigan has also targeted U.S. Representative Tom Barrett, who represents the Lansing area. Sorry. Anderson said he believes Community Action Michigan is targeting certain Michigan districts to flip them blue, but also asked very defensively, but do you have to amend our charter? Vice Mayor Drew Duncan said Community Action Michigan did not give information to city officials about what the goal of the amendment was. Duncan also said he was asked to sign the petition, but canvassers could not answer questions about the petition. This was not led by Kalamazoo citizens, Duncan said. A few things to say about this one, which, I think, in general, the idea of tracking healthcare information and trying to kind of see, where are the holes, what are the gaps, what can our community do better? That's a good thing that you really can't say it any other way. I would say, the lack of specificity is kind of a problem. because if and the problem with a lot of these information gathering committees is they end up spinning their wheels. You do get some good data out of them sometime. I don't want to, degrade that work too much, but I will say, especially something that the city was not especially prepared for. There's no like, what is the reason this is being done? And it said, lower healthcare costs, but I'll empathize with, I've even heard like progressives in the city commission say, that is unfortunate. That's a federal problem. There needs to be changes made to the national healthcare system to really start working on, or even just at the state level. It is difficult for municipalities to have too much of an influence over healthcare when, again, a lot of that is tied, especially here in America, to the capital driven insurance companies that run much healthcare all over the United States, as well as systems that are, from the state or federal level. Federal thinking about like Medicare, Michigan Care, etc. So the ability of a municipality to really have a huge impact on healthcare costs is fairly minimal. Now, there is a lot that can be done with healthcare at the local level. Don't get me wrong about that, but I think I can empathize a bit with Vice Mayor Duncan and even Mayor Anderson by kind of critiquing the lack of specificity here. I will say that could also be an opportunity. We can try to think of what are the healthcare problems unique to Kalamazoo, and we can allocate our resources towards that. My guess is this probably will pass in November because Kalamazoo residents, are usually a progressive lot, and the idea of you know trying to do something to improve our local healthcare is at least it sounds good on paper. But yeah, I mean, I guess that will be much of the city commission's job to figure out how to use this mandate around healthcare and healthcare costs to actually improve things in the city rather than just having just another committee that's going to kind of spin its wheels and get redundant information. All right. We will link to that in the show notes. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, or the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Give me dialogue. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution.
The largest.
All right. Hey, everybody, we're back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Your source for political revolution. Joined now by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how you doing?
I'm all right, man. Still a little under the weather. So doing the Zoom call. Feeling
Oh yeah.
like feeling like democracy now. You know what I'm saying? I'm Juan Gonzalez, always at home in the
Yes.
in the home studio. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Good, glad. I mean, hey man, so glad to have you here to talk about
Yeah,
what's going on. I think right out of the gate, there's something you and we both want to talk about, and I mean, first of all, I think the lack of coverage has been really something about this story, because even
yeah,
even a lot of independent media has not been paying a lot of attention to this, and this might be one of the biggest fumblings of the bag in the wake of a natural disaster since Hurricane Katrina, but nobody's talking about it. There's some reasons nobody's talking about it, and we'll probably get into
yeah,
those, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, Gary, Indiana, if you know, about 2 weeks ago, northern Indiana had a hell of a storm. Some places winds reached nearly 100 miles per hour. It was nasty, knocked out power and infrastructure all over the state, and through a huge swath of the Northeast, reaching all the way through Pennsylvania. Um, and many of you are probably aware that like a lot of places it took a long time to get the power back on. As of right now, Gary, Indiana still does not have power.
2 weeks later.
Two
Two
weeks.
2 weeks later, um, the it is as of today, it is the 25th, right? The Gary over 38,000 homes, more than uh 38,300 homes lost power August 11th due to the storms. This is according to CNN. I'm reading an article from CNN. Shout out to CNN because this has been updated. This was just posted 3 hours ago. Um, Northwest Indiana has been out for 2 weeks, and this is a majority black city in Indiana. Just like Hurricane Katrina, just like the Hurricane Katrina in 2005, uh, FEMA and other organizations that should be going to cities that are suffering from natural disasters. A majority black city that's suffering from a national disaster is not getting the resources or help that they deserve, and because of that, um, people are people are getting sick, people are dying. I want to remind people that Gary, Indiana has hospitals, and they have hospitals, they have um, grocery stores. So people who are on ventilators, babies who are on ventilators and things of that nature. Now, because of there's no power, they're doing things by hand. They're doing things. It was reported that doctors are hand pumping ventilators.
This
And
sound
when
this
I
sounds grossly familiar. Sorry. Mm.
that and that's kind of the point, bro. That's what I'm getting at. There's been a number of articles. It's not just CNN, but MS Now, CBS, and others that's talking about how doctors are going to the extreme to make sure that their patients and their residents are are being taken care of. It it's very similar to what we're doing to the Cuban to during our Cuban blockade when the power goes out there. It's like it's sad that America now. It's sad that America now, you know, we're a third world country with a Gucci belt, but that Gucci belt's now is now, as we've seen, is fake. Like there is no reason why the Civil Corps of Engineers or FEMA and or other uh uh higher ups in that industry shouldn't be in Gary right now fixing this.
Yeah, I mean, it also again, we talk about, the kind of strip mining of the social safety net that we've really seen accelerate under Trump 2.0. It has these very real consequences. Part of it being, um, the federal government, FEMA, is basically almost non-existent at this point. Um, and so they're not coming in to start getting the people of Gary back on their feet. um and as far as what the administration is actually offering, it's pennies. It's something, it's like a paltry amount compared to what is actually needed, both in the short term to get the power back online, but also for a lot of the long term storm damage that a lot of these places, including Gary, are seeing. um and of course, there is, the whole racial dynamic or aspect of this. There are a lot of people, I would gamble money on this, in the Trump administration, who probably are not acting too quickly on Gary because of a lot of their, let's say, pre-existing prejudices against a place like Gary that is predominantly black and is often painted in the conservative news media as some sort of John Carpenter Escape from New York dystopia. Uh, which, which again, it's it's not surprising, but it is incredibly wild to see just the like the lack of collective response from the government. You did mention a few reports from the media, but like this, imagine if this was like Chicago or New York. It would be like global headlines. But because it's Gary, Indiana, which is, more, predominantly a very like black and low income city, it's it's like a footnote in the headlines. And that's one of the most outrageous aspects of this, to me, that, how the Trump administration is responding to a power outage in Gary, Indiana, not surprising, but it very disappointing, to see how this story is not really being talked about, like it should be.
Yeah, yes, and like I agree with everything you're saying, and also this isn't surprising. Uh, what was it? East Palestine. When the East Palestine accident happened, right? When the train derailed, right? Our president did not was chose not to um chose not to divert resources or attention to that city. And not, and I want to remind everybody, because we talk about climate change all the time, that climate change is real. But those who are poor and disenfranchised will be affected worse by climate change and in these natural disasters. There's a piece.
Oh,
There's a
just
section.
as a quick reminder too, East Palestine, when the train derailment, that happened under the Biden years. So,
Yeah,
while it's really accelerated under Trump, it's important to understand that again, the very paltry response to these disasters has been kind of a bipartisan affectation as
no,
well.
no, no. I'm glad you said that. I'm sorry, I didn't even add that. I'm glad you said that. But decade there's been decades of disadvancement of de-investment investment in Gary, Indiana for years. Um, reports I'm reading from this is reading from that same article. Um, Gary, Indiana's medium income is around 40,000 when the statewide is 71,000 plus, right? Uh, there, Gary, Indiana, or the poverty rate in the state of Indiana is 12%, right? And according to the last census, and Gary, Indiana is below that, right? Um, it's the area that's widely affected Gary and its resources. The city itself does not have the income or resources to deal with this problem. And this is the state of Indiana. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Indiana overwhelmingly voted for Trump. You would think that because this state supported our president, that he would at least speak on or try to play or try to give, like, try to save face. He would at least try to go down there for a photo op, right? To be like, yeah, we're on this. We're on this disaster. This is we're gonna take care of our people. The fact that he's not doing so. The fact that
And
he's
by the way, we're
spending more.
not just talking about Gary here. That's also like, yeah, again, the rest of Indiana and a lot of the other places that were really hit hard by that storm.
Yeah, it's just that you would think in a state that overwhelmingly voted for the president would try their best to take care of that state and city, in the cities in that state, right? And our president is not. is not doing so. The governor is not, like, it is a disaster, and it's going to get even worse. Shout out to the Associated Press. I'm also reading from the Associated Press that uh that they've been covering this, talking about there's been an uprise in generator in, like, people stealing generators. They are reporting that looting and other things are taking place during these last 12 days, that those things have gone up. It's it's very reminiscent of what happened during Katrina.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like that was I mean I think that was one of my first thoughts that came in. But like even more so that because while again the the government response to Katrina was famously ineffectual, I think what's even more startling with this one to me is, the Katrina, I mean, the Katrina disaster was it started with a natural disaster. Like you had intense flooding all over, New Orleans. That hurricane itself caused a lot of damage. Now, that's not to say that the storm 2 weeks ago was a very intense storm and it caused a lot of damage. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like Gary's not flooded out. It's not, inaccessible. It faced the same level of disaster as other places in Indiana, which are already seeing relief that have already seen their lights get turned back on. It really is an example of even more so than Katrina of not only like the government fumbling the bag, but like this sort of willful neglect. We are seeing kind of again how uh, capitalism functions in real time, where wealthier communities see their needs addressed first, whereas poorer and a community like Gary, which is heavily black, is as again left in the wind for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and again, think of it. I don't think we really need to talk. Our listeners are mostly working class people. Imagine like not having. All your food goes bad for 2 whole weeks, and you don't have access to, um, a phone charger or lights, or heat or cooling, especially in the August. It causes a multitude of cascading problems that even outside of how it destabilizes the whole community is going to absolutely upset your daily life. And if your job depends on electricity, that also means lost wages, sorry. um, so yeah, it is the been this absolute disruption of everyday life for people in Gary for going on 2 weeks. And again, the looting that you talk about, like keep in mind a lot of these people, they literally can't keep items refrigerated. There's a lot of them have very little recourse. And Yeah, it's really it's just awful. It is just awful.
Doc,
Um,
Doc, I'm thinking about people who need, like, okay, for myself, I have asthma, right? I'm thinking about people who, like, when I was younger, I didn't have the medicine that I have now. I needed a breathing treatment. And a breathing treatment, for those who've never had to deal with asthmatic people, it's a machine that you have to plug into a wall. You put some albuterol solution into like a mask contraption, right? And you have to cut it on, and you take it like a normal breathing treatment that you'll have at the hospital, right? When I was younger, I had to have that treatment twice a day, in the morning and at night. If if our power went out for 2 weeks, if our power went out for 2 weeks, oh, I would have been gone. And I'm thinking about that in the sense of what other medical conditions where people need power to stay alive. And because that is happening in Gary. That's not a that's not a that's not a punchline or an
Or
exaggeration.
what
Like,
if,
yeah,
hypothetical.
that's not a what that's not Marvel's what if. That's what's happening. Like the amount of lives that could I don't even want to say that next part. The amount of lives that will be harmed because this storm has taken place, and the lack of response is going to be ugly, very ugly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I do want to point out, like, if folks are trying to figure out a way they can help, there is the mutual aid disaster relief organization that are collecting donations. We'll link to that in the show notes. Again, there's not a lot. A lot of what you'll look up are just like kind of uh, resources for people in Gary, like food banks and stuff like that. So, it is a way for people here in the community to help. So we will link to that in the show notes. And yeah, according to some estimates, Gary is supposed to be getting its power back on today. Knock on wood. We'll see
yeah,
if that actually comes to fruition. But yeah, we'll keep our eye and ear on this story, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion in the aftermath of how this huge, this big city was just kind of left to fend for itself in the wake of what they always say about climate change. That was the mildest storm season of the rest of our lives. It was bad, but like, if this is an example of how communities the government doesn't care about are going to be treated um, in the forthcoming years. I don't think it bodes very well when the specter of climate change is looming over all of us as well.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Um, I know that we have a few more stories. We have like 8 other stories that we have to get to. Um, but yeah, pray for the people in Gary, man. If you can send anything and help out, please do so. Um, and also remember, just because it happened in Gary, Indiana, does not mean it won't happen to us. And that knock on whatever that it doesn't. But we need to help our neighbors because one day we're gonna need help from our neighbors.
Absolutely. All right. Um, I was thinking the next story we might want to talk about. Well, let's talk a little bit about this interesting twist with maybe talk a little bit about the Senate race here in Michigan. Does that sound good, Lawrence?
Yeah, 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 yeah. We can talk.
So,
Wait, before we talk about that, um, I gotta talk about Abdul Al Sayed going on Fox News and putting belt to belt. If you
uh,
haven't seen that interview, oh Lord,
I was talking with my
oh
wife
man,
about this one right before I came
oh
in,
man,
but
man, Abdul's out here. Man, they are putting belt. He is building belt to behind out here, bro. It's like one of the, like he is out here, and you love to see it. You love to see it. It's not just him. Um, the black woman that also won in Florida.
oh yeah, we
Uh,
need to talk about that too.
yeah,
That was a huge
dog.
upset.
The way that they've been trying to harm her campaign, and it's not helping that the future Speaker of the House is doing everything that he can to screw over progressive Democrats. That's another story that we have to talk about. Yeah, we have okay, for those who do not know, we usually tell you the type of lineup that we have. Um there's a story that's coming out of Penn, that's out of Penn State that we're going to talk about, and there's another story uh talking about what happened in Minnesota. If you haven't heard, we're going to talk about that at the end. Um, but yeah, let's talk about the governor's race.
Oh, the governor's race.
Oh, I thought you
Um,
were talking about you talking about Senate's race. Oh, my bad.
oh, I mean, we could. I do have a story about that as well, but I
Yeah,
guess I don't know. What do you want to start with?
let's talk with Benson. Let's talk with Benson.
Okay. So, I wanted to put so a couple things about Jocelyn Benson. We've mentioned she's definitely more of a moderate and a lot more ties to corporations and big money donors than say like Abdul. And I'm reading a couple of excerpts from Jeff Smith from up at in the Grand Rapids Institute for Information Democracy put together an article about the Benson Brinks ticket, and kind of just pointing out like where have they gotten money from, and kind of just trying to inform people on that. And a couple of things that are really relevant for me. Um, uh, excuse me. A lot of folks have labeled Brinks as more progressive. I honestly don't really see that. Um, it is mentioned, so she, when the Grand Rapids Area Tenant Union and the Rent is Too Damn High Coalition, they had pressured Senator Brinks for several years on adopting a tenant bill of rights, which would include ending the ban on rent control in Michigan. These groups have pressured Brinks in Lansing at her home to adopt policies that actually center working class families. Again, without any decent results. And then also for years, the immigrant led group Movimiento Cosecha pressured Brinks on passing the Drive Safe bills. Um, and excuse me, and they visited her office and several times in 2023 with no firm commitment on getting that passed. And again, I don't know who would be calling them a progressive, but if you're not like willing to champion these very like basic bottom line things, um, you know, like what what are you doing? What were you up to in Lansing? Um, and then also talking a little bit about excuse me, uh, some of the main contribute campaign contributions they've been getting. Um, a lot of kind of corporations, wealthy individuals, some support from mainstream unions. Um, as far as Winnie brings, some of her top contributors have been Meyer Pack, Michigan Association of Healthcare Plans, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Comcast, Delta, CMS Energy Corp, DTE, and Molina Healthcare. Um, and yeah, again, it's putting a fine point on, there's a lot of excitement in this election cycle about people like Angie Nixon and Abdul El Sayed and um who's the Senate candidate in Minnesota? But I digress. And it's an interesting not necessarily like anomaly, but I think it's a good it shows us kind of where the status quo still is, where Jocelyn Benson is running this campaign on not very bold ideas, not really a particularly bold vision, coming in with uh, almost like copy and paste the same corporate baggage that Governor Whitmer came in with. Uh, and like they're running essentially on the name recognition associated with being Secretary of State for the last several years. And if we were not in this unique we would call it like blue wave midterm. We weren't in this cycle where I think a lot, barring um, a certain amount of hijinks from the federal government trying to screw with the midterm elections. It's going to be, I think, a pretty big turnout to try to just kind of stick it to the Trump administration. I think his net popularity rating is only above water in 2 states now. I was reading I was looking at a map about this, and that's often how voters view a midterm. It's just kind of a referendum on the current president. Um, they don't really dig super deeply into a lot of the candidates or as much as they should. So my guess is Jocelyn Benson probably is going to win. But it's yeah, we're she's not even making a lot of the bold commitments that Gretchen Whitmer gestured to when she was running, like line five, etc. But yeah, um, it's a good article that really kind of shows for people like yeah, it is more of the same. Unfortunately, and hopefully, I'm hoping in the next couple of cycles we will get a little bolder with there'll be people who can run more principled left framing for a position like governor. But especially in this cycle, it was really there was no progressive challenger. Nobody rose the occasion to do that. So she basically it was more of an anointment than an appointment to her ascension as the gubernatorial candidate. But yeah, not really a ton to get excited about, and somebody who could be the buck that stops, progressive legislation if we do get more progressive people in the Lansing State House. Um, you know, Benson could be the one saying that kills a bill on data centers, or if we ever got the numbers for like a statewide healthcare system, both of them have financial ties to like Blue Cross Blue Shield. So that does have consequences. For not having a progressive challenger or a progressive governor could have very real challenges for Michiganders, even if the next few elections do go poorly for Republicans. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to have too much or as much progress here in the state of Michigan as we would like.
Yeah, man. Like we, it's amazing to me when we have seen multiple races across the country, right? Now, I remember the media narrative around the Tea Party when the Tea Party only took out four incumbents, right? And they was making a big wave about how this is the new wave of Republicans, and this is the new way that the party is going. And even though the establishment doesn't like it, they have to deal with it, right? DSA, if I DSA and DSA like candidates, progressive candidates, there are I think 11 or 12 this cycle that will be either going into the Senate, that's either going into the Senate, going into the House, or are mayors or governors, right? Like there's a it's a bigger faction. And seeing candidates like Jocelyn continue to basically be more of the same means that there are a lot of politicians that are refusing to learn the lesson that we have seen over the last 10 years, which is you cannot placate or beat right wing fascism with neoliberal centrism. Now, you can skew. Now, I will say you can slide by on a blue wave election, and I think that this is a blue wave election, even though the Supreme Court just said um, Donald Trump's executive decision on mail-in ballots can go through. So that is going to screw over a lot of Democrats this in 2028, and then moving forward. Um, and in these upcoming midterm elections, it's going to screw over a lot of Democrats, right? And that's also a five alarm fire that we have to talk about because that just happened yesterday. Um, do I think that she can win? Yeah. Am I surprised? Well, but this message will not turn out voters. What what is she fighting for that's going to get people who's not coming out to vote to want to vote for her? Like honestly, objectively.
Like you didn't you mean you haven't seen like thousands of people at the Jocelyn Benson ralies all over the state?
Dog, dog. Okay, so I've been out canvassing. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all because normally I don't usually tell y'all like some of my personal business, but I've been out canvassing. I've seen Abdul signs. I see Abdul signs everywhere. I see I see I've seen some Sean signs. I've seen some other signs. Um, but I don't hear people bringing her up, and that's not a good sign going into the general. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's some, everybody like, it's going to be a difficult election. A lot of the polling has Mike Rodgers and Abdul in a dead heat. And I know Benson, on at least on paper, is ahead a little bit more. I think a lot of that polling does not factor in for a lot of that grassroots excitement. Again, people are going to be knocking on doors and making phone calls for Abdul. I don't know anybody who's going to be doing that for Jocelyn Benson, which is kind of part of our commentary. I mentioned this before the primary. Like, she better hope Abdul wins because nobody's going to be knocking on doors or making phone calls for Haley Stevens. Um, so yeah, she might get kind of a bump from that. Which I'll go, again, don't rest on your laurels. Like, it's going to be a really close election. Not. I don't think Abdul's doing really well. As far as like he's being a very good politician, but I mean, it's it's a purple state. Speaking of it, and as much as and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the story later in the program. I think Mike Rodgers was betting a little too much on Islamophobia. I don't think it's as effective as he thinks it's going to be. But there are a lot of low information voters who think Sharia law or whatever is a thing, whatever that means. So you know, yeah, just
I
don't
think
take it.
that I
Yeah, don't take it for
well
granted. We. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lawrence. Go.
here's the thing. It's great that you have someone at the top of the ticket that will get a lot of people out the vote, so that centrists like Jocelyn can slide in where they fit in, right? But that also means that she needs to be making a better case for herself loudly. She needs to be much more active in getting her message out. Because if you're just hoping that Abdul's popularity will trickle down on her, you know, that's a problem. Like
Yeah,
I'm looking at her website right now, and I'm just like, it's not enough. It's not
yeah.
enough. It's
And
not a
this is an anti-establish. This whole midterm is an anti-establishment referendum. And you might think like the projection of like Governor John James with a Senator Abdul El Sayed sounds absolutely bonkers, but that could be a possibility in this election. I again, if enough people are just like I'm voting for the one that seems the least like a corporate suit, those are the two. Well, don't get me started on John James, but you
no.
know,
John James. John James is a tool.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we're not gonna sit here and act like John James is not a
Mhm.
tool. John James is John James. is Steven from Django. Okay, I'm sorry to say it, but he is. Like
Yeah,
John James. Um, this is a man that's never seen a policy that Donald Trump has given that he does not give his stamp of approval on. He is a right wing bootlicker like everybody else, and it's not okay. It's not okay. He's pro data center. He's he's pro outsourcing of jobs. He is uh he is pro tax cuts for the rich. Um, I can't think like he's not for Medicare for all. He's not for single payer health. He's not for single payer health care. He's not for universal free college or tuition. He's not for ending the wars that we've started. He celebrated and he saluted us going to war in Iran in this war that Trump has done. John James should not be seated in power in any way, shape, or form. He is dumpster juice. But just
yeah,
because one person is dumpster juice, does that mean you show up with nothing?
yeah.
You
I
gotta
mean, yeah, like her campaign has no ground game. There's no, and like I don't even know if they have a comms team. Something that's been on my mind. There's been this ad that's been playing ad nauseum on just like every streaming platform I have. And it's like, oh, ominous music. Jocelyn Benson did work with the terrorist group SPLC, which they don't even tell you what's an acronym for. The Southern Poverty Law Center. That's,
Oh
and the
yeah.
whole
They
the whole
tried
thrust of
they
the ad
tried
is
to
go ahead.
No, I saw that ad, bruh. That was like the SPLC is racist. The Southern Poverty Law Center is racist. The organization that's fighting against racism is racist. Like I'm like I was sitting there like, oh man, they have nothing. I was like, they truly have nothing.
For
But
those who
at the
wonder where that comes from, we reported this story a couple months ago, but the Trump administration decided to go after the SPLC. Ostensibly, they were accusing them of funneling money to white supremacist groups. Now, for those who don't know who the SPLC is, they are an organization, nonprofit
the
organization that
Southern
tracks
Poverty Law
extremist
Center,
white supremacist groups. And
yes,
they basically, what they were pointing at was how the SPLC would use hired informants to get into and get information about these organizations. So the money they were funneling into white supremacist organizations was to spies who were uncovering like it's it's so ridiculous. But
yeah,
when I go back to this ad, they even flash like she was part of it. She was the board of the SPLC, which funneled money to the KKK. No, they hired somebody to snitch on the KKK.
yeah,
And like it drives you insane knowing this stuff. But like the thing is, you look like let's do a comparison. The Abdul's comms team versus Benson's, and Abdul has been really good at like you know punching back on every stupid thing that's come up and then pivoting back to the issue. Mackinac Island. He cracked a joke about it, and then like let's talk about healthcare. The whole thing where like Abdul Saeed kills puppies. Again, a lot of people who actually worked with Abdul when he took over the health department and he took out over animal control from the Detroit PD spoke up and were like, no, that's absolutely not the case. Animal euthanization dropped by 60% after he got in charge, etc.
oh no, but don't forget, you know, Abdul, scary Muslim, and he's a scary Muslim that kicks it with other scary Muslims. He was at a rally with Hassan Piker, and Piker, that scary Muslim, you know, it's scary Muslim time. That's all Republicans have.
mhm, yeah. And then it's like you see, this wild and
hmm
stupid ad and like nobody in the Benson team can be arsed to provide a response or even like a tweet
If
about it. It's like,
if I was Benson, if I was on Benson's team, I would be like, "Oh, y'all want to talk about racists? Yeah, y'all. Oh, the Republicans want to talk about racists? John James, you supported Trump, who said there were fine people on both sides at the Nazi rally in Charlottesville. Hey, hey, you're John James, you support Donald Trump, who had dinner with Nick Fuentes, a literal neo-Nazi. Hey, John James, you support Trump, the same the same person who's who who is taking down plaques and statues of African American soldiers and leadership. They fired black women who were supposed to get promotions in leadership in our government, and they fired them because they were against DEI. This is the organization that took away grants and funding from multiple organizations in this country because of DEI. And you want to talk about the SPLC, who I want to remind y'all was was one of the organizations that helped stop the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer.
oh, yep. Hmm.
like, like 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 remember remember those nutcases who tried to kidnap the
Big
governor?
Gretch, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the SPLC was a part of that. So like if I was Jocelyn with the money that's coming in from the DCCC and everything of the sort, I would be it would behoove me to punch back. Not to mention the many anti-black statements that John James has said over the years. There are a number of them that you could just play on a loop and just say, "You call me racist? I want to help black people. This is what
Hmm.
you think of black people."
Yeah, and I think it also kind of lends some credence to, something we've said a lot on the show, which is, they're gonna call you a communist anyway. These ads are
You might as well lean into it.
Jocelyn Benson is an Antifa terrorist, and it's just like, you know what? At that point, it's like, wait, just like you don't have to go join the black bloc, but maybe like maybe you have some wiggle room to be a little bit more progressive when
Yeah,
the other side is just going to call you a radical leftist anyway. Because again, it's always the arguments like we can't elect in our primaries these like radical like DSA or progressive style candidates because the right will paint them as like radical extremists. It's like they say that about everybody. Nancy Pelosi is a communist. Like, yes.
yeah. They have literally said this about everyone. Uh, Grow a pair and fight back. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hmm. And with that, I think maybe talk a little bit too. So we mentioned a couple things about Abdul, and there's this interesting perception versus reality thing going on with his opponent Mike Rodgers that I thought was really interesting, and in some ways it shows a little bit more political savvy than the the DNC. But it recently came out that Mike Rodgers basically told AIPAC more or less in private that he does not want them to publicly back him um, because he is fearful that what they say, Rogers' allies have urged AIPAC to uh, uh, what is it? Urged AIPAC board. I'm sorry, I'm okay, getting mixed up. Let me back up. Mike Rodgers reportedly urged AIPAC board chair Michael Tuchin in LA last week to toss an attack ad against El Sayed the group had already finished making, which actually is a little bit of corruption in itself. Um, it's technically illegal for candidates to coordinate directly with their super PACs. but he, as Rodgers has asked AIPAC and the United Democracy Project, which is the super PAC that AIPAC runs, to kind of keep some distance away from his campaign. Now, pointedly, does this mean he's not actually taking their money? No. Um, Rodgers' team has also said uh, they should give him that money, that 59 million, uh, or plus, 59 million plus in other ways. They urged AIPAC to get involved without putting the group's name front and center. Time said that Rodgers urged UDP to slow down on its plan to oppose El Sayed. And they are considering alternate ways to support his campaign, including AIPAC members contributing to an existing pro Rogers super PAC or funding a group of a different name so as to not disclose AIPAC as the original donor. So it's it's funny where it's like, you know, it it's just like, hey, bro, I can't be seen as like taking money from you because it might be bad for me in the general election. But you can maybe give that money to this buddy of mine, and then he can send that. It's literally like the electoral version of that is what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's the drug dealer shuffle. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I
Mhm.
can't be connected to the money. I can't be within 1,000 feet of where the dealing is being done. So pass it to my lieutenants, and my lieutenants will handle it.
Yeah, it like the fascinating thing, like again, this is 2026. All of this is like on ink or online or like it's there's a chain of evidence. Even if you do that, it would still be very easy for El Sayed to say it's like you're still taking APAC money. You literally told them to, submit it to you in other ways. So like,
So
you
you're
know,
still coordinating. You're
you're
still
still coordinating
coordinating.
with APAC. Yeah.
You're still coordinating with APAC. What are we doing here? So
If anything, a good, Syed, it would be, good ammunition because like not only are you coordinating the APAC, but you're trying to hide it. You're trying, and this is again money out of politics. It goes right back to like the core stump speech that he does.
yeah, dog. The idea that Mike Rodgers has is now say is like, yeah, I can't be seen taking this money, and because I can't be seen taking this money, I'm going to do everything in my power to not associate with APAC, which means the stranglehold that organization is becoming more savvy as well. That's the other thing that we have to take note, that they are doing everything in their power not uh to not have the name APAC associated with them, because they all now see that it's a liability. Voters are voting against APAC. They're voting against this flood of money in our politics. It's not at a point where it's completely toxic, that it will be in every election, as you saw with Cory Bush and some others, but it is getting worse for them. And that's a good sign. That's a good thing. We need to make sure that we are still putting the boot on the neck, and we are make sure that we are still informing folks that APAC is still trying to buy this seat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're starting to see
And also,
too.
wait, wait. Well, this also goes back to the point that we made before, and this is no shot at Haley Stevens, because Haley Stevens and the other lady, um, uh,
McMorrow, there's the
yeah,
yep.
they've come on board. They're stomping with Abdul. You know what I'm saying? That's all wonderful and dandy. But this goes back to the point that we were making earlier. APAC was also funding their campaigns as well. And if they would have won, APAC would have went from the Democrat to the Republican, like they're doing now. Like they're doing
Yep.
now.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's I'm happy that we don't have to deal with that as our reality. That APAC was like, yeah, it was nice that we got the more progressive person up out of here, but yeah, we want the Republican.
Yeah, and what's been interesting too is this wasn't entirely unexpected, but there's been a huge amount of astroturfing in the weeks following Abdul's primary win. Um, there's this, I don't know if you saw the story, Democrats for Mike Rodgers. He had like this big event over in Detroit,
Wait,
which
wait, wait, wait. Is that true? Was that actually true?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, it wasn't a lot of. It was a couple. It was a couple dozen people in somebody's front yard at a Detroit house, and I can't remember. There's this Zionist, I think, rabbi fellow who basically just completely smeared Abdul as a raging anti-Semite. Again, using the whole canard of equating anti-Zionism or opposition to Zionism with anti-Semitism, just again doing a shell game with the terms. And then also Karen Whitsett, which if just to kind of bring y'all up to speed, we actually we've talked a lot about Karen on the show before. She came up a lot, and about a year ago we did an episode with our friend Tristan, where she kind of described the end of the Democratic trifecta and how the lame duck fell out. But Karen Whitsett she is kind of like
A
she's
Karen.
retiring, thankfully, but she's kind of like Michigan's own John Fetterman. If John Fetterman mixed with a little bit of RFK, because she's got a lot of those like woo woo like anti-vax opinions. Some people refer to as a dino, like Democrat name only, because especially since 2020, she is had way more conservative, embraced a lot of fringe ideas, is vocally homo and transphobic. Um, and unfortunately still has her seat. I don't know too much about the dynamics of her district, but she's publicly supported Donald Trump. Basically a Republican. It's like a Republican running under the Democratic line. So to hear her speak up as one of the Democrats for Abdul, I mean, this woman, it's like again, it's about as surprising as seeing like John Fetterman show up on Fox News. But if you don't know too much about Karen Whitsett, you might think like, oh wow, that's like somebody in the Michigan legislature is crossing party lines. But yeah, she again has those opinions, and in that lame duck section. That session that we talked about, she also, much like John Fetterman or Joe Manchin, she was the spoiler that stopped any of that late stage progressive legislation from seeing the light of day. She literally ghosted the the state house in important key votes, or was basically trying to draw out the process as long as possible so that the clock would run out. So I mean that's who Karen Whitsett is. So like if these are the quote unquote Democrats for Mike Rodgers, I don't really think Abdul's got a ton to worry about. But again, a lot more that is more about like trying to make it look like a huge grassroots reaction to Abdul than it is like what's actually going on the ground. We've also seen there's that open letter that was circulating with basically telling Michigan Jewish Democrats to vote for Mike Rodgers because of anti-Semitism, et cetera, et cetera. Which, I'm not going to say there aren't going to be people who vote along those lines, but you know, in this, getting somebody who successfully campaigned against AIPAC, against $60 million, and is again the nominee. Like I would really reassess if like having a pro-Zionist stance is going to be like is that the strategy you're going to run with to make them lose. And if you believe sincerely in your heart of hearts that Abdul is anti-Semitic for criticizing Israel, I'm sorry, you need to do some soul searching. You're wrong. You are factually incorrect. That is not how this works. The entire religion of Judaism is not a nation state. I don't know how many times we have to say this on the show, but like yeah, like no, it's morally and factually incorrect. And you know I'm sorry, you gotta fix your heart there, buddy. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. Um, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Um, kind of thinking, there's bouncing off of that. There was also, and this might lead into that other story you wanted to talk about, but there was some commotion in Michigan last week. Everyone's favorite Nazi dork, Jake Lang, came to Dearborn, Michigan, ostensibly to lead a crusade or something. It was, oh my God.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. Okay, okay. Jake Lane, yeah, he's been traveling and now he's in jail. We are
yeah.
it's an amazing story. For those who not know, uh, it's funny. Um, Nick Fuentes and others would normally join Jake Lang in these presentations of lack of brain cells in these rallies that were our white nationalist rallies, right? You would normally see Marjorie Taylor Greene and others who are proud. They but now have now has smartened up and not shown their true power level, right? Uh they don't go to these just open and just blatant neo-Nazi rallies. Jake Lane has been doing a Midwest tour. Notice that he didn't go to Detroit. Notice he didn't go to like
Yeah.
majority black cities. He normally stays in cities where the population is mostly white and that the cops will protect him. Um, so he came to Michigan, he came to Dearborn, he didn't go to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and
He
by
went
the
to
way,
Dear
that is that's consistent with like how a lot of these white nationalist groups operate. They don't have like they have to inflate their numbers by basically going on tour. When the Proud Boys came in to Kalamazoo a few years ago, there it is again like almost all of them out of state plates, and you saw them popping up in cities like literally taking time like vacation time or whatever to terrorize cities on a tour across the country, and that's kind of the same mo Jake Lang was doing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, so they went to Dearborn. They didn't have an incident. Nobody really cares about their life. There was a large counter protest. There was a large counter protest that overshadowed them. Um, and then he chose to go to
But before we talk about Minneapolis, I actually did have a couple
yeah,
comments on the Dearborn thing. As
yeah,
I was watching a lot of coverage of this, and something that was really interesting to me was again like obviously not enough crusaders showed up to support Jake Lang, but what was very
yeah,
interesting is even a lot of conservative Michiganders showed up to kind of just like onlook. And I saw a couple of interviews with conservatives who disagreed with Jake Lang, one, and two. These are there's this college Republican from, oh gosh, was it? I think it was Eaton or Wayne maybe. But he was talking a lot at length about how in the national media you hear a lot about like Dearborn and Sharia law, but like if you live in Michigan, it's like I've had a lot of conversations with Muslims, blah blah blah, and again, this is a Republican. This is the segment of people Mike Rodgers is trying to scare about Abdul El Sayed, and basically saying it's like they're just it's like Dearborn's a pretty quiet community. It's not like it's not full of terrorists or Al Qaeda or whatever. Um, and then another one they interviewed basically said it a little bit more crassly, like it's a bunch of BS. This guy's coming in to stir up a bunch of noise. I think he's a Jewish plant. He's a Jewish plant. And by the way, I want to both of them use the term Jew instead of Israeli. And something else that's come up in the latest five alarm fire from the corporate media about Hassan Piker is he said something about how like just to paraphrase pushing Zionism and like the IDF and stuff makes American Jews unsafe. And this is something that he talks a lot about on a show, and that again, a lot of Jewish peace activists, more importantly, have talked about since almost the beginning of Israel, which is when you become this kind of bully pariah colonial state and you associate it with the entire religion of Judaism, that is bad for Judaism because you're associating the actions of a colonial apartheid state with a religion. And we're actually, I feel like we're seeing that dynamic in real time where, again, they're interviewing these Republicans who it's like, I've actually been to Dearborn and talked to people. These people are cool. But instead of saying, even saying he's an Israeli plant, saying he's a Jewish plant, you're seeing that thesis like come true. You're seeing how a lot of these people in the conservative movement who've come against Israel, they're not centering their criticism on Zionism as an ideology. They're not centering their criticism on Israel properly, but on Judaism or these old anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about like Jewish cabals, and that is very dangerous. And that's the danger that Mr. Piker was alluding to, that historians have pointed to, that Jewish peace activists have pointed to over and over and over again through the years. And it was very interesting for me to see that dynamic play out in real time, where you have this paltry turnout of quote unquote crusaders, people from out of the state who've never been to Dearborn, don't know what it's actually like. A lot of Michigan conservatives who are calling BS on Jake Lane, but at the same time calling him part of like some sort of Jewish conspiracy. And it's important because it's like these ideas that, again, the media has an interest in putting playing in bad faith or taking out of context. We're actually watching those theses, that thesis realize itself in real time in ways like what happened in Dearborn was transpiring.
Yeah, pretty much. We also talk about the fact that um that a lot of these conservatives don't understand that some of the things that they're saying is the logical conclusion, is their logical conclusion, right? That yeah, yeah, um your ideology when it comes to talking about immigration or things of that nature will affect the people who you think are just cool people, because your right-wing friends don't care. They don't care.
Nope. Nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they don't want to be associated. They don't want to be associated with those troglodytes, but
we do see
it
this
is what it is.
a lot, like a lot of come to Jesus moments for conservatives are, it's like they vote for these nasty policies that are going to hurt people. But it's not until it hurts someone that they know that they get a like surprised Pikachu. I'm like, what? And they go,
Right,
it's like,
right.
mhm. It's like
So
I didn't realize voting for the leopard would mean that my immigrant wife or my Muslim neighbor's face would get eaten. I don't. What's going on? What's happening? My
yeah, and
politics
it's
have consequences. I don't. Wow.
yeah, pretty much. And so to wrap this story up, like I said, he's been going on a world tour. Shout out to Tribe Called Quest. Um, he's been going on an award tour, and the award that he got when he was in Minneapolis was hands. Spider-Man, one of the one of one of the counter protesters dressed up as Spider-Man. I'm not gonna give out his real name because free Spider-Man, because not all heroes wear capes. A counter protester dressed up as Spider-Man and 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 uh and reenacted Kendrick Lamar's Peekaboo, because he hit that man with the boom bop boom bop beep bop bow. The type of y'all wouldn't understand. You know what I'm saying? It was
Yeah.
amazing. It was a big, yeah, right. Uh He ended up getting some hits in on Jake. The cops, people got pepper sprayed. The cops started fighting him. Jake also ended up getting arrested too,
Hmm.
and that is the best part of the story. They both got arrested, but free Spider-Man. I think everybody needs to go and there's a
Getting
his
a huge
arrangement.
amount of community support. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his arrangement. I think is either today or tomorrow. The community is asking to come out in support of Spider-Man because in the comic books, Spider-Man beats up Nazis, and in real
Yeah.
life, Spider-Man beats up Nazis.
Uh,
So hey, full circle. Uh, what happens in books sometimes happens in reality. So I mean, hey, it's amazing.
it's just the fascinating thing I find about this Jake Lang fellow is just like this guy is batting zero. Like every time he comes out to do one of these stunts, he just gets terminally embarrassed, and it's like, does this guy not have any like sense of like, can he not like see himself? He can't like you just like that pathetic thing. You get going to the crowd in Minneapolis. They're trying to kick down that ice sculpture, getting beat up. But at this point, when you just like, dude, just give up. It's not going. You are. It's like
Yeah,
at this point, this dude like. And I was thinking about this before the Minneapolis incident, but like Jake Lang is this character. Like I know, look, there's a lot of debate in some liberal lefty circles. It's like to punch Nazis or not punch the Nazis. That is the question or whatever. And it's like the thing with Jake Lang, he is such a fascist dork. Like I see Jake Lang, he makes me like it doesn't almost it almost feels more like he doesn't inspire me to like I'm gonna go fight the Nazis. It's more like he makes me want to act like a bully from an 80s movie. Like I want to give Jake Lang a noogie. I want to give him a wedgie, dunk his head in the toilet. I want to steal this dude's lunch money. He's just like I feel like a punch is almost too dignified. But I don't know. A punch from a
nah,
guy in a
nah,
Spider-Man costume is pretty nice. But just
nah, dog.
like
Dog. My grandfather. Look, my grandfather fought in World War II. Um, but God rest his soul. He's no longer with us. But my mom's father fought in World War II. Back then they only gave fascists and Nazis cold steel and warm lead,
yeah.
and hot
Mhm.
lead. So for me, again, I don't condone violence. I do not condone violence. I am not. I will not. I don't think. I find it funny, but also, if you're there to counter protest, do not beat up the Nazis because beating up Nazis is only going to farm them more content. It's only going to make them look like the victims. We do not give them wins, right? And that's ultimately what that was. But it's funny because in the comic books, Spider-Man beats up Nazis. Superman also beats up
Oh
Nazis.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I think the moral of the story is if you are going to dress up like a superhero at a counter protest and you're counter protesting white supremacists and Nazis, you have to dress up like a superhero first and then recreate what you saw in the comic books.
Yeah, I think like, my opinion on this has kind of like changed over the years. And I think like, first and foremost, everybody has a right to self-defense. Let's not get
Yes.
that wrong. But I found these like neo-Nazis, they almost like they fear being humiliated more than they even fear getting like beat up. So like, like it's this is the perfect sort of thing that could have happened to Jake Lang. It's just this getting punched by a guy in a superhero costume, or even just like sometimes people ask me, it's like if we could have done anything different when the Proud Boys came to town, like it's like I think we should have gotten a giant PA system and just followed them around playing the chicken dance. just yeah.
Okay. That would have
Yeah.
been funny. That would have been funny. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie.
Yeah, because
Okay,
again, these
so
they take themselves so seriously, and when you reveal them to be like just again the fascist man babies that they are, it deals such tremendous and delicious psychic damage.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go on, Lord.
So, okay, so there's a few quick hits. I have a few quick hits. One, if you are a person who claims to uh care about women's sports and you show up to a WNBA game harassing the players, you don't care about women's sports, please
Mhm.
find a new hobby. You are a troll and you're garbage. I'm not saying the guy's name because I do not care about him. He was a former NBA player who's teamed up and is partnering with the girl from the Indiana Fever, the conservative girl from Indiana Fever, not Caitlin Clark, but her teammate, who's a bench, who's the sixth man on the team or six woman on the team in their conservative circles, and basically saying, "Hey, we need to protect women's sports." And the way that they want to protect women's sports is by having these former NBA players join the WNBA, right? And one of those former NBA players uh, were harassing some of the female players at the Chicago Sky basketball game. You are lame. You are a lame, soulless person if you think that you're going to protect women, protect female sports, protect women from trans people. If you believe that you are doing so by harassing women at their job, you're protecting women by harassing them at their job. Like, yo, you're lame and garbage. And obviously, don't have any friends. You don't have any friends to tell you, brother, this isn't a good idea. Why would you do this? You have no friends. You have no friends, and it's sad because that this man who scored 3 points in the NBA, he scored 3 points in the NBA, thinking that he can go to the WNBA and dominate and be a star because he wants to protect women's sports, right? And I don't know if he's seen any of the players from the Lynx or seen Caitlyn or seen Angel recently, but Angel Reese just got done breaking the WNBA record. She's the first woman ever to score plus 20 points, have plus 10 rebounds, have have uh and and have, I think it was three or more steals while not missing a shot from the field. She's the first woman in WNBA history ever to do that. You think that you're just gonna outplay her? Like, you think you're gonna outplay Olivia Miles on the Lynx? Olivia Miles has been dropping threes from half court
Yeah. Mhm.
just for fun. Like, nah, nah, bro. It's whack. It's lame. That's all I gotta say about it.
All right. I have a couple of quick hits, actually. And these are again just some really short updates, but unfortunately I didn't get this in time last week. Um, well, I mean it was published after our usual show, but August 20th. Um, the our sister station WMUK, they put up an article about, so the union reps at KPL are asking residents to support its campaign for higher wages at a trustees meeting. So the union of KPL aides and hourly custodians, um, they said the library only increased its latest pay offer by 17 cents, which they say is still nowhere near the $21 an hour the union is hoping for. Currently, members make around $15 an hour. Um, and on so the meeting that we're talking about was actually yesterday, but I would say there is a lot of room for all of us as concerned residents of Kalamazoo to get on the board of trustees about this issue and express our support with the union of KPL aides and hourly custodians. So again, all of the trustees, their contact information is up on the library website. So it wouldn't hurt, maybe send them an email, let them know how you feel about this particular topic. We'll link to that article in the show notes. And then I also wanted to point out, we've covered this story before, and it's one of the more exciting things going on here in Michigan as far as citizens taking back control, or the means of production, if you will. I think we talked about Ann Arbor is trying to set up a municipal power utility, and wouldn't you know it, the Empire Strikes Back. This is from an article at Michigan Advance. DTE funded group sues Ann Arbor after it approved November ballot question for city owned utility. And again, I'm just going to read a quick paragraph or two. The Ann Arbor Responsible Energy Coalition is suing the city of Ann Arbor and its clerk, Jacqueline Bowdry, over Bowdry's certification of petitions, which could result in the city taking the first step towards a city-owned electric utility replacing DTE. A citizens group called Ann Arbor for Public Power wants voters in November to say yes to a charter amendment that would establish a municipal electric utility board in order to eventually separate the city from its electric power supplier, DTE, and create a city owned electric utility. I'm not going to read too many of the other details here, other than here are the cliff notes. Ann Arbor and the people of Ann Arbor have doing a really great job pushing this idea for a municipal electric utility board for obvious reasons. I love this idea. I hope it's successful. I hope we should really think about doing something like this in Kalamazoo. But of course, DTE is not going to be too happy about it because again, that means loss of revenue for them. It means loss of control. And oh man, they can't have that. So now they are calling in the lawyers to try to stop it from happening. Lawrence, I don't know if you follow this story, if you have any thoughts on it, but
No, I haven't followed the story at all. I'm not gonna lie to you.
mm,
Um, it's not that wasn't the story that I was thinking about. I have a quick hit too, by the
all
way.
right,
I need
yeah.
to, but
No,
yeah,
go ahead and
but
pivot. I
no,
mean, that's
but
all
that's
I'd say. But
that's crazy. That's a crazy story, man. Like it's already bad enough that we have data centers that's sucking up all the natural water
yeah,
and using up a lot of electricity, using up more electricity than most cities use up in a year. Data centers are using, right? And now we have
yeah,
municipalities like the one you're talking about having energy issues. I can only imagine what's going to happen is if we have other things like data centers
yeah.
happen in that area, or what's going to
Yeah.
happen to the residents in that area.
It's funny to think
Like,
about, again, it's America's 250th anniversary. There's a lot of people's like, what about, don't you like American freedom and democracy? And, it's like, okay, what about, can we have democratic control over our power utility? Uh, no! Ugh.
because because that'd be socialism. That's
Yeah.
communism. That's
Oh, no.
that's that's Marxism. That's all the isms. That's
All the
all the
isms. All
isms.
the isms.
That's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the isms.
Gonna, they'll
You're
probably
trying to you're
frame it some way. It's the people's caliphate of municipal
you
energy
s-
too. I don't know.
did you say the people's caliphate?
Yeah,
The
so just throw some
the
Islamophobia in
people's
there too.
dog. The people's caliphate is wild. What?
Oh God.
Yeah, like dog. Yeah, the People's Caliphate is crazy.
I,
No,
I,
no,
I'm of course just being silly, but yeah.
nah, I got you. No,
All right.
all right. So I talked about this last week, and I wanted to have a little bit more time to speak on this. I talked about this last week, briefly, but I want to talk about it more. Talked about the NACD, the NABJ, giving out awards to multiple organizations and the people and talking about giving it to Stephen A. Smith. The main reason why I wanted to bring it up as a quick hit, because I want to actually have a deep dive into this conversation when we have more time. But organizations like the National Association for Black Journalists is an organization that's supposed to stand up and defend journalists and free speech, um, and also how protect black journalists and black journalism, freedom of speech, and also how Black people are perceived in the media. There are times like this when they gave Stephen A. Smith and others the thumbs down award to say, hey, your content is harming us and has harmed Black people. As much as it's a call out, it's also a call in to say, hey, can you people do better? Because it wasn't just him. Five people got the award. The Washington Post, CBS, um, uh, Circle City Media's head, and also the FCC head, Carr. He also got it, right?
Mhm.
Um, the thing that makes me the most frustrating is that when it's time for uh the NABJ to stand with members of its press, of Black journalists, I'm trying to think of the incident with Mark Lamont Hill, right? When Mark Lamont Hill got fired from CNN because he gave a speech at the UN talking about Palestine, right? They didn't protect him then. They didn't speak out then. They didn't say anything then. So when you have an organization that's supposed to be about protecting Black journalists, Black freedom of speech, and things of that nature, it makes me look at you sideways. I look at you sideways as an organization when you're like when you won't stand for Black journalists when it's hard,
Yeah.
when it's not easy. And again, this happened a while ago. Mark has bounced back. He has his own YouTube channel. He's on the Joe Budden podcast, things of that nature. But there's a couple of different instances where this has happened, and we need the NABJ and other organizations like it to make a fuss, to stand up and say, no, as an organization, we do not stand with this. We do not rock with this. And I would love for them as a media platform, and I mean, this is me doing some critiquing and media analysis, but I would love for that organization to do more, to speak up more, to talk about, to stand out more when it comes to freedom of speech and injustices that are happening in the Black community. And they're already doing great, but
Hmm.
they need to stand up when it may be hard too as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think with that we got to wrap up. But Lawrence, thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah.
Um, and everybody else out there, thank you for listening. Again, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast, which is on most podcasting apps. Thank y'all for listening. Until next time, everybody, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.
All right, homie G. I'm out.